So on a night when Taylor Swift's fiance actually scored a touchdown in Brazil, I thought we'd shift focus back to the National Basketball Association and ask this question. How dumb does Steve Ballmer, the owner, the guy worth $159 billion, how dumb does he think the rest of us are? Hey, welcome back to the NBA Rundown. As always, I'm Dave DeBaugh, coming to you from the Silicon Valley. Now, by now you've all heard this. Kawhi Leonard got $28 million from a defunct startup called Aspire, which of course Steve Ballmer personally invested $50 million in. All of this compliments of the great reporting job by Pablo Torres, who always does a great job. If you have a chance, you should absolutely check out his video. So on tonight's show, we are going to get into this in just a little bit. But before we do that, I want to remind all of you out there who Steve Ballmer is.
What the hell are we supposed to do about .NET, Steve? It's a very good question, and it's got a very, very clear answer. Developers. The key to .NET, the key to industry transformation, the key to success is developers, 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 developers. Developers, 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 developers. Yes!
So for a long time, Steve Ballmer was the COO of Microsoft and then eventually went on to become the CEO of Microsoft. Ballmer did an absolutely fantastic job with the Los Angeles Clippers when he took over. As you might remember, who he actually took over for. That being said, Steve Ballmer, worth $159 billion, and I don't care if it was a $100,000 investment or a $5 million investment or a $1 billion investment. When Steve Ballmer invests in something, he usually knows where that money is actually going. Now, in the Aspire case, that founder actually ended up ripping off all of the investors to begin with. So maybe we could give Steve Ballmer the benefit of the doubt, just simply to say he was duped into his investment. But I will say this, the gun is pointing in one direction and one direction only, and that direction of this particular red flag, because this is the very definition of a red flag, is right at Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer pulling off some sort of behind-the-scenes collusion to actually get Kawhi Leonard more money so he would come to the Los Angeles Clippers and then remain with the Los Angeles Clippers. This particular story that Pablo Torres broke has all of the makings of what is classic collusion. Look, at the end of the day, Steve Ballmer did make a $50 million investment in Aspire. At the end of the day, Kawhi Leonard did receive a $28 million contract. So now in the September report that came out, it says that he received $21 million in one sum and then is actually still owed an additional $7 million. That being said, the conclusion in all of this is pretty simple. Look, Kawhi Leonard took a little less money to join the Los Angeles Clippers in the first place. And then when Kawhi Leonard went ahead and re-upped with his latest contract, he also took a little bit less money. It is as clear as water being wet that there was collusion in this particular case. Now, that being said, we do like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and we do like to give people the opportunity to explain themselves. And of course, Steve Ballmer earlier in the week went on ESPN and attempted to do so. And it's simply just hard for me to actually believe, and I think it's hard for you to believe, that somebody that's actually worth $159 billion did not know that his $50 million investment was partially going to fund Kawhi Leonard's contract with Aspire. Now, Kawhi Leonard's contract with Aspire stated that Kawhi Leonard didn't actually have to do anything. He simply was getting a $28 million contract to do nothing. If you will, this is an episode of Seinfeld if it ever goes back on the air. At the end of the day, the build out of the Intuit Dome, the performance of the Los Angeles Clippers no longer being the laughing stock of sports in general, not just the National Basketball Association, was a completely wiped away by Mr. Developer himself. So it's hard to believe that somebody as smart as Steve Ballmer did not know what was going on with Aspire and this particular deal. Now, there was a new CBA deal signed between the players and, of course, the National Basketball Association. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of stance Adam Silver actually takes on this. I think one thing is for sure that there will be some sort of stance taken on it. Now, when you're worth $159 billion, just simply fining Steve Ballmer is probably not going to be enough. You can expect that if Adam Silver and his team of investigative reporters actually sit down and watch Pablo Torres' video, will most certainly come to the conclusion before they even begin their independent research on this particular topic that Ballmer probably knew what he was doing, which probably means that the Los Angeles Clippers are going to lose several first-round draft picks as well as a lot of money, and could possibly end up in a world where Kawhi Leonard's contract is actually voided. Now, when we look at the Los Angeles Clipper roster at this point, sure, it has several players on it who are heading towards ARP cards sometime soon. And if they didn't have to play an 82-game schedule, and if all they had to do was play in the playoffs, this Los Angeles Clipper team would be a favorite, just considering who's on the team. But we know that an 82-game schedule for older basketball players, as great as they were during the prime of their careers, are probably not going to hold up throughout the season. That being said, what do you think should have happened to the Los Angeles Clippers? Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves had a similar thing happen during Kevin Garnett's era, in which they ended up losing 5 first-round draft picks that David Stern took away from the Timberwolves. They ended up negotiating it down to 3, but it was wasted Kevin Garnett years because the Timberwolves did not have those draft picks. So this certainly could be the end of the Los Angeles Clippers at least being a middle-tier team in the Western Conference when you consider what the impact of losing 3 first-round, maybe 4 first-round draft picks over the next 5 or 6 years could be. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself this question. If you've seen the Pablo Torres video, as I have, if you've read the stories as I have, if you sat down and watched Ballmer on ESPN earlier in the week, I still find it hard to believe, as smart as Steve Ballmer has been throughout his career, that he would be this dumb to not know what was actually happening with his $50 million investment. I'm just saying. Okay. Go ahead and drop in your comments and thoughts on this particular topic whenever you have a chance. As always, for the NBA Rundown, I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.